When we are divided, we needlessly lose hundreds of thousands to a preventable global pandemic. Divided, we destroy our planet and fail to slow climate change. Divided, we put millions in the path of war, poverty, and injustice. Divided, we lose trust in each other. But when we come together, we can collaborate to solve our biggest global crises. Together, we can protect the planet for our children. Together, we can build a better future for everyone. Together, we can share our one world in peace. At this time of great need, we need each other now more than ever. Let's come together at OneShared.World.
I'm Jamie Metzl, founder of OneShared.World, and on behalf of all of my colleagues at OneShared.World and our incredible partners all around the world, it's my incredible pleasure to welcome you to our event today on water and sanitation for all, the fight against pandemics. This is part of our Rise or Fall Together speaker series, where we are exploring not just the great challenges of this moment, but how we can come together as a world to best solve them. We are right now, all of us, at a turning point, a civilizational turning point, somewhat equivalent to 1918. And there are two paths ahead of us. One path forward is a path of exclusion and wall building, and another is inclusion and bridge building. Only that second path can allow our species and all of us to thrive. That's what OneShared.World and our whole community is all about. OneShared.World was formed in the earliest days of the pandemic out of a recognition that if we just solved COVID-19 but didn't address the broader issue of pandemics, we would be jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire. The same is true if we address pandemics, but not climate change or ecosystem destruction or proliferating weapons of mass destruction or global systemic poverty and inequality. Only by coming together to solve our greatest common challenges together will our species be able to thrive. Because our concept, our idea that we all share, that we need to build a new framework for global collaboration and problem solving based on the mutual responsibilities of a recognition of our deep interdependence, can't be abstract. It has to be made meaningful by solving very real problems that address the needs of very real people. And that's the lesson that this virus teaches us. We are all connected. If the virus grows and mutates anywhere, it threatens people everywhere. Addressing the urgent needs of the world's most vulnerable populations, therefore, isn't and can't be seen as just charity. It can't be seen as wealthier people helping poorer people. That's not the right framework. It must be seen as it is, as the best and smartest investment we can all make in building a safer world for everyone. We are all safer when the urgent needs of the world's most vulnerable populations are addressed. And that brings us to our topic today of water and sanitation for all. We have actually coined a new term. It's a compound acronym connecting WASH, water, sanitation, and hygiene, and PAP, pandemic protection. And we believe that those words are more connected than they ever have been before. Addressing WASH isn't just about helping poor people. It's about coming together to build a safer world. The estimates are from Cambridge University that the cost of COVID-19 will be about $82 trillion over 5 years. What tiny fraction of that would we need to spend in order to build a safer world for everyone, to build a more resilient population that made us all safer? At OneShared.World, we believe we must have a systemic response to this systemic problem. That's why our WASHPAP campaign has focused on addressing this issue at every level, and we're going to explore all of them today. On a popular level, WASHPAP and the absence of it are experienced by very real people on the ground, and we're going to hear and see more of that when we connect with the amazing Shah Chowdhury and people in Bangladesh. And as part of the response, we also need to have a popular engagement. And that's why OneShared.World is partnering with Avaz to reach out to many, many millions of people around the world at all levels and all backgrounds, inviting them to join this campaign. And certainly, I hope over the course of our conversation today, everybody will go to our OneShared.World/WASHPAP campaign page and look at the campaign, look at our reports, our petition, everything else that we're doing to drive attention and awareness and action to address the urgent needs of these most vulnerable populations. Civil society is also an essential part of this effort. And that's why we've reached out and connected to more than 100 civil society groups around the world who are working in these areas. And together, we have developed an outline plan for how safe water, basic sanitation and hygiene, and essential pandemic protection can be provided to every person on Earth by 2030. This is a fully achievable goal. And that brings us to the third part of our outreach, which is to governments. Governments play an essential role in our world today, and they can be an essential part of solving these kinds of problems. G20 leaders are meeting less than 2 weeks from now, and G20 represents about 84% of all of the world's wealth. We believe that in the context of this pandemic, there is a historic opportunity for the G20 to make a very strong statement that the only way we can each be safe is if we are all safe. And we have some very specific proposals on how WASHPAP can be the cornerstone of this kind of campaign. But this isn't about any one person, any one group, any one government. It's about the world coming together. And that's why, unfortunately, for everybody who is listening all around the world, this is a dialogue. We have amazing speakers, Shah Chowdhury, Jack Sim, Minister Suresh Prabhu, who you'll hear from in just a few short moments. But we are all speakers. We're all leaders. And so if you are here, we need you. The world needs you to think of yourself as a primary actor. We need you to be part of our conversation today. And that's why if you have any thoughts, any suggestions, certainly any questions, and we're going to be fielding your questions a little bit later, we hope you will add them to the chat function wherever you are watching. There are people on multiple platforms, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. In any of your chat functions, if you add a comment or a question, we will receive it, and that will be part of our conversation. And at the end of our time today, a little less than an hour from now, we are going to be joining in breakout sessions that will be moderated by Annie Forsheimer, Nell Douglas, and Catherine Elias, where everybody will be invited to speak and to participate, because this is ultimately about participation. It's about joining, because the only way we're going to be able to build one shared world is together. And the only way we're going to do that is with inspiring leaders who can help make the impossible possible. And that's why it's my great pleasure to welcome to the stage Minister Suresh Prabhu. Minister Prabhu is a member of Parliament and the former Minister of Commerce. He is also the current Minister for G7 and G20, known as a Sherpa. And if you have any doubts about his brilliance, we can also add that he has not one, but 2 PhDs, which adds a lot of pressure. So Minister Prabhu, Suresh, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you especially to our friends at ICRIER, which is not just one of India's premier think and action tanks, but one of the world's premier think and action tanks, for making your presence possible. Minister Prabhu, again, welcome.
Thank you very much, and for inviting me to be part of this one world, because we believe in different parts of the world. But if we start believing that this world doesn't belong to us, then we have a serious problem. And that's how we have lived for so many decades, thinking that some problems are not my problem. There's somebody
Yes.
else's problem. Forgetting the fact that we all have a common ancestor. We all were born to us one lady some few thousand, tens of thousands of years ago, and therefore we all are one. But we forget that because we feel that my problems are not my problem, my problems are my family problems, my neighborhood problems, at best my state problem. And even stretching the imagination further, we might think country's problems are my problem. But the world, we never realize we are one. And we always know that. If you don't think we are one world, please tell me, Jamie, and I'm very happy for your initiative, why more than 200 countries and geographies are affected by the same pandemic? If we are not one world, how can we be suffering from the same disease? How can we get affected by the same virus? And why are we struggling to find out the same vaccine which can cure all of us? That means we are accepting the fact that we are part of the one world. But when we face challenges to ourselves, we want to be associated with the world, thinking that the whole world can solve my problem. But what about those who could never become part of this world? These are the people whom you are really targeting, and I'm very, very happy and congratulate you. More than 2.2 billion people lack access to water. I think that's UN saying. More than 4.4 billion people, almost double that number, are the ones who have no access to secure toilets. And all of this has a huge consequences on human life, the lives of those who cannot even dream of sitting at home and even thinking that the biggest luxury for them is to get a glass of clean, potable drinking water. So, therefore, I am very happy that we are talking about it and not just talking about it. You have brought a lot of people together on the same platform, and I really congratulate you. And let me unequivocally state that we'll support a possibility in which the whole world could get access to clean drinking water, safe drinking water, good sanitation, and as you said, it has impact on wash. But I hope we don't wash our hands off this responsibility. So we have kept the name wash, but I hope we don't wash our hands off, and we work on this and hold each other hand and wash our souls and thinking that now it's my responsibility to make sure that my fellow citizen, my fellow human will live at least a part of a dignified life in which I waste so much of water flowering plants, okay, watering plants, giving water to my lawns. Huge amount of water is wasted on that, washing cars. And here are the people who cannot get a glass of drinking water. So I think we have to accept the reality. That's a good point. The first beginning of solving a problem is to accept a problem. If you don't accept a problem, we'll never be able to solve it. So I'm happy that this Millennium Development Goal 6, is actually targeting this issue in a very significant way. So I hope the goal will not remain a goal, but we'll actually be able to achieve our objective by fulfilling our responsibility of addressing this challenge together. And I really, therefore, look forward to the world community playing a key role into this. When we accepted the Sustainable Development Goals, who has accepted it? World as a whole. We have realized that this is not just a responsibility of an individual country, individual geography, individual society, but it's a global responsibility. And as I was saying, the pandemic has proved the point that if you leave a local problem somewhere else, it is going to affect everybody else because of low quality of water and even unhygienic water, or not having good toilets, and therefore people defecating on the roads or somewhere else causes huge health challenges. It can even cause another pandemic. And if pandemic is happen, then what happens to all of us? Then we are willing to spend not billions but trillions of dollars to save economies as a consequence of this pandemic. Why not therefore save, forget trillions? We can find the trillions when it is necessary. Why not find only few billions and help countries who are facing this problem to solve that problem? And if you do that, it's in the self interest of the whole world community. Because by doing that, we are actually helping to solve the world problem. Let me tell you, I am very happy to say that my Prime Minister Narendra Modi, decided to address this challenge very squarely. He took caught the bull by the horn, and first thing he did was to provide 100 million toilets. Now he's working on an even more ambitious program of providing safe drinking water to all the households of India. It's a massive work. There are almost 1.37 billion people live in India today, and that's almost 17% of the humanity. So just imagine, if we can address this problem in India, to great extent, we are solving the problem of the world, and will help the world to fulfill its obligation, its commitment under the Sustainable Development Goals. So we can really work in such a way that we take it as a joint responsibility, shared job, something which we have to do in our own good. Because as I said, if that problem starts somewhere else, it's going to affect you. So why not we nip it in the bud and make sure that people live it? And then the happiness that you can be deriving from doing something as good, as noble as this will be phenomenal. And as I said, it doesn't need much money. It hardly is any money. In fact, there are other elements to it. One, the source of water itself has to be protected properly. Because water is not created, it is not manufactured. It can be desalinated, it can be cleaned, it can be recycled, but it cannot be manufactured per se on a scale at which we require. So, therefore, the source of fresh water has to be properly protected. And for that, we must understand the link between forest and water. Because forests are the source of providing clean drinking water. We don't have to spend billions of dollars in making that water potable to bring it to the municipalities, and for municipalities to bring it to the homes. The nature has made that provision. Nature has made it possible that water can be purified and cleaned in a proper manner. And that is the forest ecosystem which makes it possible. So we have to protect the source properly. The other aspect of water problem is there's a linkage between like water and forest. There's a linkage between water and land. Why? Because land only stores water. The lakes, the rivers, they are on land. And even forest has to be on the land. You cannot have forest in the air. And therefore, the linkage between forest, land, and water has to be properly understood. If we can do that, if we can protect the source, if we can ensure that that itself is not contaminated to begin with, we have solved a great battle. Of course, once we have the source of fresh drinking water on a scale which nature provides us, and we don't first pollute it and then clean it and waste the resources into doing that, if we can do that itself, there will be another huge collateral benefits. One, people will start understanding that we must protect water bodies for our own good. In fact, I have launched a program in India, a completely voluntary effort. We are enrolling few million volunteers, and we call them protector of nature, Nisarga Rakshak. Why? Because we are explaining them the link between the two, link between water, land, forest, and everything else, and also trying to tell them that please keep this in mind when we do this. So we are working on this. If you want to, I want to ask me question, I can stop here. But I can
Yes.
tell you very clearly, we are working very aggressively on this campaign. Prime Minister Modi is leading it as the head of the government. But it's not. We can leave it to only the government. We
Right.
must have a social movement, and that is what
Yes.
exactly I am trying to do in my personal capacity by creating volunteers for every village. We have almost 800,000 villages in India. For every village, there will be one volunteer who we call Nisarga Rakshak, the protector of nature. And there will
Mm.
be other one who will be teacher of nature, who will
Yep.
teach people about the linkage between all of this. So we are working on this, but I am very excited by the fact that what we are really talking about is one world. Let's
Yes.
not forget there is one planet, but there is
Yep.
no one world.
Yes.
We
Yep.
create our own boundaries around us and think that we are secured beyond the boundaries, and we have nothing to do of those who live beyond the boundaries. Boundaries can be local, boundaries can be national, boundaries can be geographical, but we are actually feel comfortable in living boundaries, forgetting the fact that these boundaries will be penetrated by the diseases and will be big trouble.
Yes. So thank you. We could not have said it better. What you have said, it embodies everything that we stand for. We know it's what you stand for. And you mentioned that we need to build a social movement because Gandhi ji taught us that. It's not enough to reach out to governments. We have to empower everybody at every level to be part of the solution. And I know as the former Minister of Commerce, you recognize that India is on its way to being a global economic superpower. But India already is on its way and has the great potential to be perhaps the leading global spiritual and values superpower, drawing on India's great tradition of bringing people together and inclusion and bringing that to a global level. With you as your current special role as minister for the G20 and G7, no, G20 has an incredible responsibility because it's the most powerful countries on earth. And if anybody is going to speak up for the poorest people all around the world, it must be the G20. Thank you so much for your kind words of support for our WASHPAP initiative. G20 is meeting next Saturday in Saudi Arabia. And what we have reached out, we're in touch with the Saudi G20 Secretariat and multiple G20 secretariats of different countries, calling on all of us in a very constructive and inclusive way to come together to guarantee WASHPAP for everyone on Earth by 2030, in line with the strategic development, with the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is the language that we have proposed. And what we're calling on is for G20 leaders to make a commitment of WASHPAP for all by 2030 in this year's summit, and then to work together to have a full plan that can be ratified in next year's G20 summit, which will be in Italy. And the year after that, G20 will be hosted by India. We think there's a real opportunity, especially now in the context of this pandemic, where it's not just all about getting an mRNA vaccine that won't help everybody. It's about building a more resilient global population. What do you think specifically India might be able to do, and I think is already doing, to help move this agenda forward to make sure that the G20 agenda and communique is focused on helping the world's most vulnerable people?
As you know, the G20 the summit will happen next week. So we are actually at a closing stage of ensuring that G20 leaders communique summit will be almost finalized as such. So will definitely try to find out, but I think it is little late in the day. But as you correctly said, 21 will be hosted by Italy, and 22 will be hosted by India, and of course 23 will be by our good friend Indonesia. So we'll continue with this agenda of taking it forward for a simple reason. That G20 is a grouping of 20 countries by definition. We are together, as you said, 86% of the global GDP. But that gives us not strength, power, that puts more responsibility. Being little more stronger than the rest of the world, it's a responsibility of those who are strong to take care of the weak. And weak only in terms of smaller economies. But they are people, they are population, they are humans, they are our responsibility. And therefore, we have to ensure that we work not just for this 20 countries' interest, but for the interest of the whole humanity on this planet. And therefore, those who are in the room, 20 countries have responsibility for those who are not in the room. And therefore, we must ensure that we'll take that responsibility forward. And therefore, we have to get it done in shortest possible time. In any case, all these 20 countries, along with others, have already got a shared responsibility to address the Sustainable Development Goals. Therefore, our deliberations cannot be totally at variance with what has been already accepted at global stage, like Sustainable Development Goals. And therefore, this being one of the key Sustainable Development Goal 6, which is the heart of, I would feel, the sustainable agenda, because it has health content, it has social content, it has gender content. The worst affected people because of lack of access to drinking water and sanitation are women, the girls, young girls. And therefore, we have to ensure that we address this challenge together. And G20 will be the forum to address so many global challenges. And this is a global challenge. It's a country's, not one single country's problem, though action has to be local, but the effort has to be global. Therefore,
Yes.
I think we'll be definitely working on that.
Yes, and what we are trying to do is to help put wind in your sails. We know that you and your government are so deeply committed to this issue, and that's why we are calling on people all around the world through our WASHPAP campaign to go to the OneShared.World /WASHPAP website to sign the petition to empower governments. That's why, Minister Prabhu, we're going to send a tweet in your direction in just a few moments, and we hope that you'll retweet, calling on people to support WASHPAP for everybody. And that's why, working with Avaz, we are going to be sending an email to many tens of millions of people around the world, inviting them to work collaboratively with our most enlightened governments, like many of the governments that you mentioned, like what your government is doing on water and sanitation, because we need to all come together. That's the way change will happen. And this is our great opportunity. If we can't come together, exactly as you said, in the context of this pandemic, when can we come together? So, Minister Prabhu, I know that you have other obligations, but we just, on behalf of all of us and our partners at ICRIER, we just want to thank you for everything that you've done, everything that you are doing, and we know that you will fight the good fight in the G20 this year and into the future, because exactly as you said, this leadership that G20 countries have comes with a tremendous responsibility, particularly to the world's most vulnerable.
So thank you very much. And as you said, I have other engagement, but there cannot be a bigger engagement and responsibility than solving this problem together. And I can assure you one thing, that with full commitment, full dedication, and full sincerity, we'll all work together to create a real one world. And I can tell you, if you create a real one world based on equality, on humanity, on principles of compassion, I can tell you many of these resources of the so-called developed countries are wasted into doing something which is so extraneous, which is not necessary, avoidable, only by making that world becomes peaceful and better place to live. And that is what the poor people are asking. Unfortunately, those poor people have no voice, so they cannot be heard. And therefore, I can only tell you that let's work together on behalf of those people, for those people, and in the interest of all of us. As I said, even from selfish angle, because no problem can be said to be somebody else's problem. We live in the same world, same planet, so we'll have to face this together. Thank you very much. God bless you. And as you correctly said, you reminded me of one of the greatest sons of this world and a great son of India, Mahatma Gandhi, who had once very interestingly said that you cannot sleep in peace when you know that your neighbor is starving and has not eaten anything. That's the beauty of one world. That's what he explained. That you cannot think about, this is not my problem but somebody else's problem. Only you can do that if you don't have heart. And therefore, you cannot do this. I hope everybody's heart remains at the right place. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. It's now my tremendous pleasure to invite Shah Chowdhury and Jack Sim to the stage. Shah is an entrepreneur from Bangladesh who leads Footsteps Bangladesh, which helps make local communities more resilient. Jack, as many of you know, is the founder of the World Toilet Organization, both of whom are great leaders at different levels. So here they are. And I'm going to have a conversation, first a short question for Shah, and then with Jack. But before I do that, I'd like to introduce each of them with a very short video. So let's run the video that gives us a little bit of background on Shah and Shah's work.
Access to sanitation is a very big problem in Bangladesh, especially in the coastal region. And now with more refugees moving in from Myanmar, the problem has become even bigger. So that is what the latrine project is trying to address. Our goal is to build various sanitation facilities along the entire coastal belt of Bangladesh so that everyone can be benefited from this project.
আপনারা যে টয়লেটগুলো দিচ্ছেন আপনাকে ধন্যবাদ। 20 ফ্যামিলিতে একটা যদি ব্যবহার হয়, 100 ফ্যামিলি যেখানে আসে সেখানে আরো 60টা দরকার। ময়লা আবর্জনা পোকামাকড় এই জন্য আমরা অসুস্থ করে গেছি। যাই ব্যবহার করবে ওরা সুস্থ আছে। গোসলের জায়গাটা আমাদের প্রয়োজন হয়েছে, ওইটা দরকার। 2 মাস পর মনে করেন পানির অভাবে চলে যাবো। আমাদের যেতে হবে পাহাড়ের ভিতরে, যেই এই গর্তর মধ্যে যতগুলো পানি আছে ওই পানিগুলো নিয়ে আমাদের ব্যবহার করতে হয়। মনে হয় এটা যদি পারলে আমাদের সমস্যার সমাধান হয়।
বাংলাদেশে প্রায় 10 লক্ষ রোহিঙ্গা আশ্রয় নিয়েছে প্রায় আজকে 3 মাস। এই রোহিঙ্গাদের আবাসন সংকট, পানি সংকট, স্বাস্থ্য সমস্যা এবং বিশেষ করে এই যে শীতের মৌসুমে শীতে প্রচুর কষ্ট পাচ্ছে মানুষ এবং গভীর নলকূপ ছাড়া, বিশেষ করে এই নয়াপাড়া ক্যাম্প থেকে শুরু করে উনসিপ্রাং পর্যন্ত এই প্রায় 4 লক্ষ মানুষের মধ্যে কোনো অগভীর নলকূপে পানি আসে না। একটা টয়লেট 100 জন পর্যন্ত ব্যবহার করে। এই যে টয়লেটে ঘন্টার পর ঘন্টা দাঁড়িয়ে থাকতে হয়, সেই জন্য অধিকতর বিশেষ করে স্বাস্থ্যসম্মত টয়লেট খুবই প্রয়োজন তাদের জন্য। কারণ ইতিমধ্যে যে সমস্ত প্রতিষ্ঠান টয়লেট দিয়েছে সবগুলি একদম অস্থায়ী এবং 1 মাস 1.5 মাসের মধ্যেই এগুলি ময়লা জাম হয়ে গেছে এবং এগুলি পরিষ্কার করারও কেউ নেই, যে কারণে হাজার হাজার টয়লেট পড়ে রয়েছে যেগুলি মানুষ ব্যবহার করতে পারে না। স্বাস্থ্যসম্মত টয়লেট ব্যবহার করার জন্য আমি সকল স্বেচ্ছাসেবী প্রতিষ্ঠানের প্রতি বিশেষ করে দাবি জানাচ্ছি।
Thank you so much. That video is really important for what we're doing today, because there's the big abstract number of 3 billion people who don't have access to basic sanitation. But every one of those people is one of the people like we saw in the video. And so, Shah, by the way, first, huge congratulations to you. One of our partners in this event is AFS, American Field Service. And I know you just received the prize for Young Global Citizens. And because OneShared.World is in many ways a global youth movement, we congratulate you, and certainly on behalf of all of us and our partners with AFS. So one question for you, and then I'm going to intro Jack and show his video, and then we'll have a conversation together. We just heard from Minister Prabhu about the important responsibility of governments and the G20 to help solve this problem of water sanitation, hygiene, pandemic protection, which is a global problem with individual local manifestations. But these are systemic problems, so they need to be solved top down, bottom up, outside in. In your work with people on the ground, on the front lines of this problem, what are the lessons for how the voices of people on the ground can be heard? Because I'm imagining that they have a lot of ideas for how to solve this problem. They just don't have the tools and aren't empowered to have those voices fully heard. So what are your lessons from working on the front lines?
All right. Thank you, Jamie, first of all, for inviting me to this session. I've been working on WASH for the past 5 years, so being over here with you guys is allowing my voice to be amplified, and not only my voice, but the people that I work for their voices to be amplified. I think like when it comes to WASH, like especially Goal 6, UN SDG Goal 6, which is access to universal safe water and sanitation, I couldn't agree more with Minister Prabhu over here. In the case that, first of all, what happens on the ground itself is so much different from what we see on television or read on newspapers. It's because the problem on the ground is much more complex and requires more elements to be involved. See, WASH itself is something which is interconnected with other social issues and results and can be a symptom for other socioeconomic problems. Like, for example, I'll share some examples in this talk. One is like when I was on the ground, I remember like seeing people walk for miles and like stand in line for hours to collect 5 liters of water. And most of these people were women and children. So the gender equality issue comes in where the women have to spend at least 4 to 5 hours a day just to collect water over there, where they can use that time for other productive type of work. In a similar fashion, a lot of kids cannot go to school or like miss school because of drinking contaminated water. They fall sick, so they cannot get the education that they require to overcome their poverty barriers in that way. Same way for productivity, because of the increased amount of waterborne diseases from drinking contaminated water. What happens is many people, when they go to work, they have low productivity rates. And another thing is like with the solution itself, how it was mentioned that trillions or billions of dollars are being invested into SDG 6, right? But we're not seeing that level of impact. And I believe the approach needs to be a bit more different, because when it comes to traditional approaches, what happens is an organization or a governmental body, they will set up a wash facility, be it a drinking water station or like a latrine system in a community, without even communicating with the community first. So what happens, the community is in shock about what's happening. And after implementing the project, they leave right away. So the community doesn't know on how to like maintain these projects in the long run. So what happens is after 6 months or like 5 months, the project fails. So that's like a waste of money over there, right? Because the community has not been empowered through the solutions that have been made. So what we do here at Footsteps is we first go into these communities, we learn about the problem from themselves. And the main part is we try to hear what ideas they have as well. We try to hear what's their input, what's their feedback, and then we try to mix in our solution with their own solution and create like a super solution in that way. So what happens by doing that, we're creating accountability for these communities. The communities feel like whatever we're doing is a part of their idea. So they feel more of a responsibility to maintain it in the long run, instead of like some foreign goods coming into their territory in that way. So this is something that needs to be done, the approach itself, because if we are working more towards like providing aid or providing resources without proper training, we're actually contributing to the problem even more by making these communities more aid dependent. What our goal should be, what our approach should be, is to transition or transfer these community mentalities from an aid dependent one to a self-reliant one. And by doing that, what will happen is not only in terms of WASH, but other challenges as well. We can utilize the solutions for WASH to empower communities to become more self-reliant and resilient in the future, and hopefully achieve SDG 6, which is universal access to safe water and sanitation.
That's really great, Shah. And I think what you said about super solutions, it's essential. Because this can't be, we certainly want governments to play a much bigger role in solving these problems. But if it's just governments, if we aren't empowering local communities, then we just won't be able to succeed. One of the core mantras of OneShared.World is power with, not power over. And certainly we think about that in terms of governance, but it also has to be, that has to be the case in solving problems, because there is no top-down solution and there's no bottom-up solution there is an everything solution, a super solution, exactly as you say. So thank you so much for that. And now we'd like to go to the amazing Jack Sim, who, as I was saying just before we started, if I had known he was going to wear such an exciting shirt, I would have dressed much better. But Jack is just an incredible visionary and entrepreneur. And he's a visionary and entrepreneur, not just about how we think about the strategies for solving problems, but the culture for allowing those problems to be solved. So before I ask my first question to Jack, I would like for us to have a look at Jack's exciting video.
Yeah, man, without a toilet, Mujik is selecta, hey. About 2 billion people lives like that anyway. They squat, do the business, that's it, man. La mer, tawa goto, excrement. Shit goes down in the water, man. People use that. That means disease about to happen, man. That's too bad. I'm not trying to disgust nobody, but y'all must know. Cause in life, when you got to go, you got to go. Told my homies, yo, we gon' make a hit, huh? We gon' make a hit while we're talking shit, hey. Take a sip, shit, this shit is lit, bit your manggigit, kaya like it, you beat it, woo. Told my homies, yo, we gon' make a hit, we gon' make a hit while we're talking shit, hey. Take a sip, shit, this shit is lit, yeah. Bit your manggigit, kaya like it, you beat it, yeah. Talk about it, talk about it, yeah. Talk about it, talk about it, yeah. Talk about it, talk about it, yeah. This gon' be the only song you hear me talk about shit.
Wow, that was awesome. So, that was just great. So, Jack, culture is a big part of this. Every culture, we have these taboos, and that makes solving this problem all the more difficult, which is, it's bad all around. But now in the context of a pandemic, this becomes a global problem. So how do we think about cultural change and the context of addressing this big global systemic problem of WASHPAP?
Yeah. So 20 years ago, when I first decided to stop doing business and start doing volunteer work, I realized that they call sanitation a water agenda. And so I was trying to find out what is their action in sanitation. Mostly they are talking about big treatment plants, and they're not talking about poor people who are off grid. There's no sewage pipe going to their house. They ignore them. And I say we cannot continue to call sanitation a water agenda. We have to decouple it and give sanitation its own center stage. So I call our organization the WTO. Sounds like World Trade Organization, but actually it's the World Toilet Organization. And when people start to get very curious, what is this WTO talking about shit? Suddenly, the media love it, and they publish so much that every year we reach out to 2 to 3 billion readership. In this case, building the media became the main work. And the more people talk about it, the more they demand it. And as the citizen demand, then you have the supply. First of all, why does politician want to supply anything? It's to win election. So if they were to supply jobs, they win election. They supply water, they win election. If they supply toilets, it must be because people want it. If people want it, they will provide it because they want to win election. Now, how do you make a toilet a subject that is palatable? Any subject that is a taboo is newsworthy because it's never spoken before. Therefore, I went and do crazy things like wrap around my body with toilet paper, look like a mummy. And so the kind of language is calling a spade a spade. And when people laugh, they listen. And after they listen, they take action and they demand for the toilet. So this video that you have seen is the first time I've ever done a hip hop production. I don't know anything about hip hop music. So I asked my daughter, what is hip hop music? Because I want to reach people now. And she just sent me a few songs and I say, okay, we're going to make this. And I found an Indonesian hip hop singer, Sekoji. And then I think we have to tell people the way they understand.
Yeah, I think it's just, and by the way, we had a message on Twitter calling it the best video ever. So really this conversation, it's just so important. Really what we're trying to do is think of this, addressing this challenge on every level. And that's so important. I've just gotten word, we have 158,000 viewers of this event all around the world. And then we're going to be sending it around afterwards. So we're really excited about that. Again, as I said in the beginning, anybody who is participating anywhere in the world, we want to hear your voice. We hope you'll type your questions into the chat, whatever platform you're on. If you put it into the chat on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, we will receive it. We hope that everybody will go to the OneShared.World/WASHPAP homepage, and there you'll see our petition calling on G20 leaders to guarantee WASHPAP for everyone by 2030. As Shah said, this doesn't mean that they're just going to do it. We're calling on them to just do it alone and we sit back. It means we need a super solution that thinks on every level, that empowers people, that thinks about culture, that helps ensure that the people on the front lines have voices that can be heard. Again, power with, not power over at every level. So we hope you'll go to the OneShared.World site, sign the petition, and we've put together our outline report of how this can be achieved. This is not some pie in the sky pixie dust. This is a fully achievable goal for humanity. Water, sanitation, hygiene, pandemic protection, it should just be the basic ingredients that every human is entitled to by nature of being a human. So we hope that you'll do that. And we hope that on social media, everyone will help spread the word. We have our hashtags, WASHPAP 2030, OneShared.World, Rise or Fall Together, and Share the Water. And we hope that everybody will do that. And on the OneShared.World/WASHPAP site, there is everything you need to know to tweet at the Saudi G20 Secretariat, to reach out to the leaders in your countries. We all need to be empowered. We all need to come together to solve these problems together. So my question for you, Jack, is how do we think about, I mean, you're in the business of coalition building, reaching others, different civil society groups, reaching out to governments. How do you think we can think about building this kind of broad and inclusive coalition?
I think it is the last 20 years, I have been dedicating my life for this sanitation cause. So I end up being called Mr. Toilet, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that people have to realize, and government will make their calculations. It's not just to tell them, you got to do it. We have to tell them why it's so smart for you to do it. Because I will tell you the story of Singapore. When Singapore was a very poor country, having a GDP of $500 a year per capita, we don't have money to build hospital, employ doctor and nurses. And therefore, the only money we have is to prevent people from being sick, and which is to solve the sanitation and drinking water issue. Because prevention is so much cheaper than cure. And so, as we prevent the disease from happening, having clean toilet and clean water, we save so much money that our country, people became productive, investor come in, create industry. Today, we are the 4th richest per capita in the world, from $500 to 4th richest per capita. Why? Because we solved the water and sanitation issue. It is the cheapest medicine in the world, the toilet. Now you think, in the world, every year there's about 1.6 million people die of diarrhea. Nobody wants to talk about it. There's no lockdown, nothing. COVID kills 1.3 billion people, less than diarrhea. The whole world shut down. Aeroplane cannot fly. And restaurants and pubs are closed. Why? Why the diarrhea death is not a panic and the COVID death is a panic? I'll tell you the answer. It's because poor people die of diarrhea and rich people don't die of diarrhea. Diseases that affect poor people are unspoken. This is where your OneShared.World have to really tell people, not morally, but actually intelligently, that you do this, you're a smart politician. You know how to budget properly. You know how to get people out of poverty.
I think that's exactly right, and that's why we have decided to focus on WASHPAP as our signature first issue that we're exploring, to make the point about interdependence. That interdependence isn't some abstract, nice thing that we can sing songs about, although I hope we do sing songs about it. It's the most practical way of solving problems. It's the smartest investment that we can make. I said in the beginning, $82 trillion of economic loss from COVID. And the way we fight COVID is to fight the virus and to make the host more resilient. We humans, as a species, we are the host. So last question will go to you, Shah. And it comes from one of our participants who asked, how can individuals hold world leaders accountable for responding to WASHPAP needs? And I'll add to that, for the communities in Bangladesh that you are working with, if you thought that, then we'd love to hear actually from them, and so we hope that we can video some of their thoughts as well in the near future. But there's a message to G20 leaders who are, again, meeting next Saturday about what is their responsibility and what they need to do. Shah, what do you think that message would be?
So thank you, Jack. So I think the message over here, because we're speaking right now, but they are not being able to be here and share their thoughts, and that's usually the case with people in the last mile communities. They do not have access to the resources or people who can organizations who can make a difference most of the time. So from my experience in the WASH sector, talking to these people, working with them over the years, one thing that I've found is they have tremendous potential. And they have more experience than us on the ground, we have the resources, we have the theoretical education, but they're the ones who are practically living the problem every single day. So they have come up with their own solutions. All they're lacking right now is the sense of resources that will help catalyze that change within their communities. So my message over there would be that this is the perfect time to invest in local people, invest in grassroots, and invest in their ideas instead of bringing in foreign direct ideas into these communities. And once you do that, what will happen is these communities will hold themselves accountable for the solutions that are made, because that is also part of their own baby, right? So that is something that needs to be shared, that world leaders needs to lend a ear, especially in G20, needs to lend an ear to the ones in the last mile communities, because who knows, they actually might have the solution that will be able to solve the problem of safe water crisis and sanitation crisis and achieve SDG 6.
Yeah, that's really just essential. And I know I'm jumping the gun, but we at OneShared.World, we are developing a prototype for something that we're calling Zoom In, Rise Up, having conversations exactly like the ones that you've articulated. And so we are very shortly going to be reaching out to you, Shah, and to AFS to partner with us, because we want to make sure that we're amplifying the voices of these actual people. We need a little infrastructure, and we're building that. So we're really excited about that. So we're nearing the end of the first phase of this process, but we are also just beginning. I know we're receiving lots of great comments from people through the chat, and we're about to start our breakout sessions where everybody is a speaker. So I want to have a few final things before we close. First, I've said it before, we hope everyone will go to the WASHPAP campaign page, OneShared.World/WASHPAP, WASHPAP, and read the report. Sign the petition calling on G20 leaders to guarantee WASHPAP for everyone by 2030. And then once you've done that, we have all of the social media handles and draft tweets and messages. Reach out to the Saudi G20 Secretariat. Reach out to Minister Prabhu to thank him for his just incredibly important remarks. Reach out to leaders in your country and in other countries. This is really a combined effort. And again, it's charitable, but this isn't charity. This is investing in a safer world for everyone. But because we recognize that social media outreach needs to be engaging, we are also launching what we're calling the Share the Water campaign with the hashtag Share the Water. And we're calling on everybody to add your videos to that. But now we're going to have an example to see what Share the Water is all about. If we could.
COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated that in our interconnected world, we are only as safe as the most vulnerable among us.
Over 1 million people are dead from a pandemic that could and should have been avoidable.
3 billion people lack access to hand-washing facilities, and unprepared public health systems are being overburdened by COVID cases.
COVID-19 is a wake-up call. Join me in calling on our G20 leaders to ensure we're all safe by supporting WASHPAP. Let's bring safe water, hygiene, and sanitation to those who need it the most.
World leaders, interdependence is a reality. We all need access to safe drinking water, basic sanitation, hygiene, and essential pandemic protection. Please, let's work together for a better future.
So we hope that everybody who's listening, just record your video on the phone. Just you saw how you do it. You take the water on one side, you make your sentence, and you pass the water on. And we're going to pass water all around the world through social media. Again, you can learn all about it and about how to submit your video on our website. Some special thank yous. Thank you to our incredible partners. We are building a coalition. Thank you to our lead sponsor, Rockefeller Brothers Fund, our other sponsors, African Network for International Education, American Field Service, Asia Society, Internews, the Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations, ICRIER, and the National Federation of Business and Professional Women's Clubs. Thank you. Thank you so much to the absolutely incredible OneShared.World team. I would sing the names of everybody, because the amount of work and heart and soul that our team puts in is just, it's my greatest inspiration. So thank you to all of you. And again, this is just the beginning of a conversation. What we are doing is inviting everybody to lead, to join this struggle together for our common good.